The Chosen One's Journey by DragonWolf12. The trio stood on top of a ridge overlooking the dig site in Grandpa Canyon. "That's a lot of trainers," Ash said. "We'd better hurry before all the fossils are dug up," Misty said. "That's odd," Brock started. "All these people digging, and yet nobody's found any fossils yet. I wonder if this great fossil rush is really for real." "Well, there's one way to find out," Ash said. He started making his way down to the canyon floor, followed by his friends. "Can your aura find fossils?" Misty asked. "I should be able to," Ash said. "Fossils were once living things, so there's at least some residue for me to pick up." They'd reached the bottom of the canyon, and Ash made his way towards the center of the dig site, while Brock and Misty went to talk to the archaeologists.
"Hey, is that you, Ashy boy?"
An annoyingly familiar voice suddenly asked. Ash turned to see Gary standing a few feet away. He was wearing an outfit reminiscent of Indiana Jones, with a pickaxe over his shoulder. "Hello, Gary," Ash said, nodding to his rival. Gary nodded back.
"Are you here for the fossil rush too?"
he asked. Ash shrugged. "It sounded interesting. Brock wanted to check it out, so we stopped by."
"Heh, well, good luck finding anything," Gary said. "I've been digging for hours, and the only thing I found was... well, it doesn't matter. I doubt there's anything here to find."
"I'm sure there are more interesting things in the ground than your rock of manure," Ash said, chuckling. He'd seen Gary boasting about his find from the ridge, right up until the archaeologist told him what it was. Gary blushed.
"Well, I'd like to see you try," he said,
before walking away. "He's getting better," Pikachu commented. "That he is," Ash said. Glancing around, he decided that this was a good spot to search. Crouching down, Ash placed his hands face down on the dirt and spread out his aura. Instantly, a glowing blue vision of the surrounding landscape and everything below filled his mind's eye. He studied the ground for a few minutes before abruptly standing up. He tracked down Brock and Misty and found them talking to a tall, stern-looking man. "Hey, Ash," Misty called when she saw him. "This is Brandon. He's in charge of the dig site here. Brandon, this is Ash Ketchum." "Pleased to meet you, young man," Brandon said, holding his hand out to shake. "And you, sir," Ash said, shaking his hand. "These two were telling me that you might be able to solve our little problem," he said. "I can certainly try," Ash said. "What's wrong?" "We've been at this site for nearly a month, but haven't found a single fossil," he explained. "And yet there are documented reports of there being multitudes of fossils located in this canyon." "That's very strange," Ash said. "I can tell you that there are no fossils anywhere in the first 10 or so feet of ground, but below that is a massive cavern, too large for me to completely see, but it might be where your fossils are hiding." "How were you able to discover this cavern when none of us even knew it exists?" Brandon asked suspiciously. "Do you have any proof it's actually there?" "The proof is 12 feet beneath your shoes," Ash said. "As for how I found it, telling you would reveal a dangerous secret that I don't want the masses to know about yet." As Ash said this, he was scanning the man's aura, trying to determine if he was trustworthy enough to keep his secret. "Very well," Brandon said. "You have my word that I will not reveal your secret without permission, unless it endangers the lives of anyone here." He wasn't lying. His aura radiated sincerity, as well as care for anyone under him. Ash nodded. He brought a palm up and started channeling aura into it, creating a minuscule aura sphere about 1 inch in diameter. That was unfortunately the best he could do at the moment. Anything larger would severely drain him. "I'm training to be an aura guardian," Ash stated bluntly. "My aura sight revealed the presence of the cavern, but it was too large to see completely. I have no idea how big it is, or what's inside of it." I see," was all Brandon said, as he brought a hand to his chin and thought. His face remained impassive, but his aura betrayed his surprise. Ash dispelled the aura sphere, and waited for Brandon to make his decision. Finally, he said, "I could organize some dynamite to blow a hole into this cavern." "Why not just have a Pokemon dig their way in?" Brock asked, as he grabbed Onyx's Pokeball. "Because, young man," Brandon replied, If this cavern is as big as Ash says it is, then any Pokemon digging through the roof could fall to their death once they break through. Oh, I see, Brock said, putting his Pokemon away. It was a good idea, young man, Brandon said, but you must consider your Pokemon's safety above all else. Brock nodded. I understand. I think my Gabite would be safe, Ash commented. Perhaps, Brandon conceded, but it's better to be safe than sorry. Ash nodded in understanding. An hour later, they were back on the ridge overlooking the canyon. This time, however, Brandon stood with them, a detonator in his hand. Ash released Lucario, and together, the two of them raised a powerful aura shield around the group. Once it was stable, Ash gave Brandon a nod. He nodded back and pressed the detonator. A moment later, the canyon was lit up by an explosion. A powerful shockwave hit the aura shield, and the two aura users grunted under the strain, but held strong. As the dust cleared, they lowered the shield to see a large crater in the bottom of the canyon, with a 2-meter-wide hole in the middle. Already, workers were making their way to the hole to set up rigging equipment so that the teams could propel down into the cave. As they made their way down to the site, Brandon said to Ash, "We don't know what's down there, so I want you and your friends to go down with me as part of the first team as protection." "No problem," Ash agreed. Brandon turned to an assistant who'd just run up to him. "I want Jones and Martinez along with 3 more strong trainers to join us. Go get them," he ordered. "Yes, sir," the assistant said as he ran off. Half an hour later, 9 people stood around the hole in the ground. Each one of them was wearing a harness hooked to a propelling line. Ash had foregone his overcoat, and his muscular form was easily seen through the black t-shirt. He always worked his own body just as hard as he worked his Pokemon. As a result, he was quite tall and muscular for his age. Standing next to him was Misty, doing her best not to stare at his developing six-pack. Beside her was Brock, who kept shooting jealous glances at Ash. He decided then and there to work just as hard as Ash, so chicks would notice him more. On Ash's other side stood Brandon and the 2 archaeologists he'd asked for. They were quietly discussing the equipment they'd brought with them. Across from Ash stood Gary. He, along with his 2 sisters, Alice and Jane, had been chosen to join the first team. All 3 were staring unabashedly at Ash, 1 in jealousy, 2 with dreamy expressions on their faces. Ash, while not oblivious to the stares, was choosing to ignore them as he checked the straps on his harness. He knew that he was going to be stared at enough in the future when he created a name for himself, and so was doing his best to get used to it. It wasn't easy. "All right," Brandon started. "Is everyone ready to go down?" All but Gary nodded. He needed to make a scene.
"Of course I am," he said arrogantly. "Make way for the great Gary Oak, the strongest trainer in the world."
He swaggered towards the hole and got ready to jump in.
"No!"
Brandon bellowed, causing everybody to jump. Gary yelped and fell on his ass.
"This is not a game, young man. There is nothing you have done to warrant that kind of attitude. I don't care who your grandfather is or isn't. You are not him. I will not tolerate any arrogance on this team. You will follow my orders or leave. Do you understand?"
"Yes, sir," a cowed Gary said.
"Very well," Brandon said. "We will go down in 2s. Ash, you are with me, followed by the gym leaders. Alice and Jane will each accompany my assistants here. Gary, you will bring up the rear. Is that understood?"
"Yes, sir," everyone replied.
"Good."
Brandon stepped up to the hole, followed closely by Ash. Together, they jumped down into the hole, their lines keeping them from going too fast. "Pikachu, flash!" Ash ordered as soon as they passed into the cave. The mouse on his shoulder started glowing brightly, lighting up the cavern. After a few moments, the floor came into sight, and they touched down. Ash unhooked his harness and pulled 2 Pokeballs from his belt. "Charmeleon, Ralts, light up this cave!" Ash threw the Pokeballs. Charmeleon appeared, and his tail flame flared up, casting light all around. Ralts appeared next to him, and his horn started glowing with his own flash.